wandering through the aisles of my art store. I bought myself a Pictomicron and some Bristol board. I made a fancy comic, and now I am all set to be the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking internet. I'll have a forum and a blog and links from PvP. I'll get reviewed by a web snark, Clean and the William G. The word to be a roaster, I think it's a safe bet when you're the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking internet. When you're the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Planet Earth Live. This is the show we're calling See You Next Wednesday, or the Zardoz Connection, or Advanced Cartooning Class, with me, your host, Chuck Whelan, and my regular co-hosts, Amber Greenlee and Chris Porro. Hopefully Dale Sipperley will be shining his benevolence down upon us later. And our very special guest today is Mr. Steve Troop.
Hello.
Troop. Hello, welcome, Steve. Yes, well, I'll tell you just a little bit about Steve. He's a cartoonist, a web cartoonist. Back in the day, he drew Melonpool Strip, which, to my mind, was a very popular webcomic. And
I think in my mind it was also popular, but
I don't know how popular any webcomics are or not.
It
really,
inspired Eric Estrada, as made band
Ryan
book club.
Estrada.
And,
Eric Estrada, isn't that the Chips guy? Right.
Yeah.
or no, not Eric
Ryan,
Estrada.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I got the name wrong. But
Right.
but yeah, band book club and stuff like that. Like that guy wouldn't have made comics if it weren't for you. So.
Yes, yeah. So Amber's invited you on, Steve. So you and her are friends from way back, and I met you back in the day at Comic-Con as well.
Okay.
May or may not gone to a party at your house, but I was at some party with you at a place called Haven House, I think, which is sort of where I met some of you guys doing.
Yeah.
You guys were all the Keenspot cartoonists, whereas on the Modern Tales back in the day, that was like the sort of big divide in webcomics, Marvel or DC.
It's so silly now.
But we both owned the trademark of webcomics. That was divided between the two of us. Neither group could afford to register the term webcomics as their trademark, so we didn't have that battle. But
Yeah.
I always find it fascinating that Marvel and DC's, that's the only trademark that's shared between two companies, is superhero.
Mhm.
Yes. So webcomic, not a trademark term. Melonpool, is that a trademark term?
I mean, I don't know who else would want it.
Yeah. Did you ever register it as a trademark? Or...
I copyright it, and I used to put the register the TM on it.
Put a TM on it. Yeah, I always put
that was
TM
about
on
as
people,
far as I got. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was never that big of a budget.
No.
I had a published comic book. That was about the only thing I had going for me.
You had a book, didn't you? I remember. I remember reading a book of your comics. Yes,
I did.
I have I think 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, you had a whole series. Yes.
Yeah.
I did all told. I did 6 compilations, and then I did 7 repackages after that.
I'm missing number 6.
Yeah,
I think the last one was This Island Earth that I had.
Yeah, the last one I did was Better Late Than Never, I believe was.
Yeah,
It was
I guess
10
I'm
years
missing
after
that
I
one.
finished the strip, I was like, I better get these strips out there because they're something. But yeah.
Well, it's a bit like that with webcomics. I was about the same with Pupil, and I got about 5 volumes done.
Yeah.
I've got like a whole story that I've written in my head for a prequel, which would be like the epic movie. It's like a sort of it's a graphic novel, 6 to 8 issues. It would open it up. It's the story of how they met. I never did it. I was always going to do it one day, And I've also got to finish it as well. And I never finished the last story. So I've got to do the 2 ends of it still.
It was funny because I ended the strip originally kind of abruptly, and then about 5 or 6 years later, I came back to it, and I did it for almost 2 years again, and then I ended it abruptly, and I left on this kind of half cliffhanger, and I was like, oh, I have this idea. About 6 weeks worth of strips could really bring this all back full circle, make it a really cool story, and then it could be in a position where I could just do it every once in a while. but I just never sat down to do it.
Did you change the format? Did you change the format much over the years, or did you stick to the strip?
I tried a couple of times. When I came back for the last 2 years, the big thing was I changed the Sundays from the regular, the Peanuts, where you could break it in a couple of different ways to do it, into the Calvin and Hobbes half-pagers.
Yeah, the Calvin and Hobbes, yes, they were very inspirational for Sundays,
and that was the biggest change, but I was still doing the 4 panels. I tried to do something that was more tablet-based for a while, but it was like I just couldn't figure out the rhythm of the panels. There's that 1-2 punch that I really got used to.
Yes, it's like writing in 4/4 time. We talked about this in music. Like Chris is a musician, and it's sort of that's the sort of grid of comics, or 3 or 4. I experimented a lot with the format, but I always tried to have a joke at the end of the page, whether I was doing a strip or a page, like have a punchline, but also like you trying to moving the story forward. So I'm like, there's a sort of bigger story that's going along and moving forward, that more than you really would see in comics. I mean, Peanuts would do a little bit like Charlie Brown's off at camp for a couple of weeks or something like that, and there would be some stories, and I'd enjoy that continuity. So I would.
Well, and Calvin and Hobbes was weekday stories.
That was the big one for me, was Calvin and Hobbes. I was always trying to do that joke cliffhanger type thing, or at least a joke to. My biggest thing is that when I read the old strips, the really old strips, is the second or third panel would always be all this exposition. I would shove in as much as I possibly could. There was always just one telling everything, and then it would do the joke. And as I got farther along on that, I there were some strips when I was putting together that last book. I was like, I don't even remember doing these, and I was like, why did I stop doing it? It was actually pretty good. Why did I even stop? And
some of the people who got successful just because they didn't stop, they just keep doing it.
Yeah.
No matter what. And then that's all they do.
A lot of that. Also, I never really had the focus niche, I guess, that like a gamer comic would have, or
Gilligan's Island, Star Trek mashups?
Yeah, mine was old TV shows that people were rapidly forgetting.
Oh, we got a talker. Do you have Down syndrome? No offense, I love you guys.
Who?
No.
Thanks for reading that one.
That must be one of your fans.
Sorry, I should have read it ahead of time.
We need screeners.
No, I just have a bad hip. That's all I got going on for me.
No, nobody has Down syndrome on the show today.
No, but we should have on a guest.
I mean,
we haven't. Yes, I don't know anyone with Down syndrome.
I can try if you guys want me to.
I tell you, I've been teaching these puppetry classes, and I went up to San Francisco, and there was I had a couple students that came out, that went to this thing, and one of them had Down syndrome, and she proudly proclaimed, "I'm a puppeteer." I'm like, "Oh, this is great," and everything. And then we were doing the drills, and she didn't really follow with that. But as soon as she started doing lip sync, it was like, Cinderella moment. It was pretty amazing. It was just that focused energy, and had learned that part of the craft so well. And she's kind of a local celebrity there. She's been doing like farmers markets and children's hospitals for like 30 years over in San Francisco. So,
wonderful.
Whoa.
Wow.
Oh, farmers market at the Alamany Farmers Market, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
Dusty's Puppets, I think, is her name.
Steve does say I thought you had Down syndrome for a second. I'm sorry. So they did.
Well, it could be this camera angle. That's pretty bad, but I have a second camera, but I can't get it to charge.
No, we have different viewers coming in from the different channels that we stream out to.
Oh, gotcha.
So, so this is just comments from one of the channels.
My hairline is rapidly receding, so I'm trying to do.
So puppets. Let's talk puppets.
Yes, I do. What do you? I can. Let me go grab Mayberry.
I think the rest of the show should be Steve responding in puppet form.
Is that a friend of Steve's who makes?
But he's never done that before.
So when Steve and I were friends and stuff like that, I used to puppeteer Roberta Smeffenpfeffer, which was basically the female version of this.
Here we go. Oh my God, yes. All right. So I was always so jealous of your puppet. I always wanted a Noma puppet.
Well, really?
Yes.
Well, I can help you design a puppet.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Yes, one of these days. I just haven't really had time for it, but yes, that's actually pretty close to what I would want for a Noma puppet. She'd have more pointy ears and a pointy blue nose, and then sort of a black hair with more, more sort of straight, like flowing black hair with like sort of like long curls. She sort of has. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah.
So yeah, I've been
it, really. So she'd always have the same eyebrows, and you wouldn't need to do the antenna. Yeah, and the eyes are just the dots. They wouldn't have the white.
So after that last comment, I'm banning obesity balls too from my channel, and we don't need to read it aloud.
Okay.
Yeah, if you guys can see it in the side there.
I mean, that doesn't offend me. I mean, I don't even really know what that's supposed to mean, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah, but I don't need to be heckled.
Wait, is this heckling you or just
whose Twitch channel is that?
It's my channel.
It's my channel, right? It's all your fault.
Yeah.
I like this live censorship.
I was gonna say I don't think my channel has any viewers at all. So
I love live censorship. Should be a new thing. It should be like a new thing that sweeps the internet.
What, live censorship?
Live censorship, yeah.
Right.
It should just be.
Because so I've been, one of the things I've been doing the last few years has been teaching these. Actually, since the pandemic started, I started teaching online puppet design. One of the things I had this whole thing where it's like I have a silhouette of Kermit the Frog and a silhouette of Fozzie Bear, and all down the line. I'm like, what's the anatomy of this puppet? And every time it's this, it's like how to figure out how to get these joints to work. The thumb has to work the mouth, the wrist has to work the neck, and the elbow has to work the butt. And if like you don't figure that out, you're gonna have a stuffed animal basically. And so it's just kind of this weird like idea. And then it's like, then you pull out Crow. You have Crow on there from Mystery Science Theater. And it's like, what's his anatomy? And it's like, it's a fist at the bottom because it's like, it's all this, mechanisms and things to make him work. So
yes, like a grabber or something.
Kind of like this. Oh wow, yeah.
Or if you
by the way, obesity balls, I can still read your stuff, but no one else can. Anyway, continue.
I think about going to the obesity ball this year, but
did you know? Did you know Rod Hull and Emu, Steve? Did you ever hear Rod Hull and the Emu? Like they appeared on Johnny Carson a few times, but he was very popular in England. Rod Hull and his emu, and the emu came on.
I think I do know who you're talking about.
He was like an ostrich, and he would like talk to the host, and at some point the emu would sort of get annoyed and talk to the host, and he was very popular children's entertainer really in the UK, and he was almost never off the air really as far as like children's television that they would do, he fell off the roof, actually. It was a bit sad. He fell off the roof adjusting his aerial so he could watch the football. It was rather tragic.
Oh, that's sad.
But he was, he was a popular guy. But I loved Rob Hull and Emu. And there was something about like a puppet in it. It takes on a life of its own.
Yeah,
I do love
to do it. Yeah. There was this, and Amber, you might have actually been there the year that this happened. I tell this story all the time.
Yeah.
There was this, we would always be working the puppets at the booths, and the people would come up, and usually the parents like, oh, I can see your lips move. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're not ventriloquists, we're just doing puppets. And the kids would just like, go crazy. They'd just be focused in there. Little kids would come up and sing with the puppets, and this, like, we didn't exist. And there was this one time this guy was like, I can't deal with this. I can't. And he puts his hand up like this. He goes, oh! And suddenly, just by blocking us out, he could enjoy the show. It was so weird. And it was like, wow, it's like that kids to adults thing,
Yes. Yes. Well, there's something about puppets, isn't it? That they take on a life of their own. They can be sort of scary. Like in England, we have Punch and Judy. I mean, we have a good history of puppetry there. Punch and Judy shows, which are quite sort of terrifying. I remember at one point being fairly scared of it, but then a little older, like really like enjoying it a lot because of how anarchic it was.
Right.
And it's sort of telling some terrible tale of wife beating, Victorian or even older than Victorian times. Oldest time, popular then. And then the other guy we had was Basil Brush, who was he was hilarious. He was like a fox, and he was very sarcastic to his host. He was very funny. Original Basil Brush. And then the other thing,
I cut my hair one time in English, and he was telling me all about that. I'd never seen it, but he was telling me, he was like, "Oh yeah, there was this character Basil Brush when I was a kid that I loved when I was a kid."
Yeah, he's hard to find. He's like a fox, and he wears a little waistcoat, and he's got a tail, and he's a little. His hands are sort of like this, but he's rather sort of sarky, and he's a man's voice. He's not a posh voice. Not. I don't know. It's difficult because you never do it. The guy who did it, he just had a lovely voice. He did different puppets on things, and he was just very cheeky.
Do you guys remember the New Zoo Review at all? You remember that one?
I remember that name.
Oh, yes. Okay. Was that the sort of one that they did of Spitting Image or something?
No. So New Zoo Review, and actually I've become a big fan of them again because they were a married couple, Doug and Emmy Jo. I don't remember their last name, but their daughter now runs a Facebook thing and does all these behind the scenes stuff. They're kind of putting together maybe a book. There was this giant frog kind of puppety thing, and then this giant hippo and an owl, and they would sing songs. And the guy Doug sang like I think he wrote 700 songs during the run of this thing about everything. It's pretty amazing. But they do a Facebook Live about once a month now, and they just sit there and talk about the show. It's something worth looking at. But that's
Well, yeah,
I just did a little trip down memory lane, and I found the images of it, just see if I could like jog my memory, and not really, but maybe they have an album out.
I think they do. Yeah.
So puppets, you are on a robot building binge right now.
Yes.
So do you have any of them out right now?
I do.
He's getting them.
Yeah. Well, I'll get that.
Robot building binge?
Robot building binge. That's the best way I can describe it. Is he's making puppets of different sci-fi robots, and so he's got like a Data puppet. He's
that would explain Crow. Bringing up Crow.
So you like that show, Chris? Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that show a lot. I caught the originals. I was kind of disappointed when they replaced. I think it was Joel, and then they brought it back as Mystery Science Theater. I don't know.
Yeah, they've had different hosts and different people.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, okay.
That's a good one.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you could have like.
Okay, do you do the voice? Can you do the voice?
Yeah, I said, I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations. I can speak over 900 million forms of communication. I'm not really good, but
that's not bad. I've heard much worse English accents. That's not a bad English accent, and not a bad C-3PO.
Puppet. Yeah. So he's got a little mechanism in here that I can pull his head up and down, and he can turn it. And then he's got a little switch in here to work his eyes. And then he's just got these rotted arms, and so in order to move his body, I have to move his arms. So if he wants to turn his head, I've got to kind of do this ballet. To get him.
Yes, that's fantastic.
But what's interesting about it is that it makes him look more like C-3PO. Like he moves like Anthony Daniels does. This thing, it's very weird. But...
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's that
I like where the arms just were. There's like I'm exasperated.
And then he's got the all the details on the back, and then I love
that's a beautiful puppet.
Amber, and I think Amber, you had some stuff on this too. Is these pistons on his arms?
I love the way the pistons ended up working.
So they're actually dune buggy pistons from a remote control car.
Originally, he just had springs on there, and that looked pretty good. But the pistons look like the actual prop.
It does, yeah.
Are those painted gold yet, or are they still silver?
I'm just gonna leave them silver. I'm afraid if I paint them, then they won't work. And
there's things that you can do chemically where you put it in acid and then you like touch it with a battery and it'll turn silver.
I wouldn't bother. Like nobody's looking at that and thinking the pistons are wrong. And also like C-3PO is always sort of a mixture. He has like silver bits and gold bits. He's always a bit cobbled together. Sometimes he gets polished up, but other times he's got replacement. This was
kind of one of these things where this was several years in the making. When I was in my 30s, I worked 30 years ago, I guess, when I was in my 20s, I worked in a hardware store, and these PVC pipe drains, I saw them, I'm like, those look like C-3PO's eyes. So I always in the back of my mind, I could do something with that.
So you started with the eyes.
What's that?
You started with the eyes.
Well, that was one of the ideas, and the
Yeah.
other one was at the beginning of the pandemic. I came across this, which was the top off of a it was a knockoff Clorox wipes container.
Okay.
And I was like, that looks like C-3PO's belly. And I'm like,
Yes,
oh,
yes.
I'll just fill in the rest with foam. And that was
Yes.
kind of how this whole thing came about.
Yes. That's very good. That's the pareidolia sort of aspect of art. Well, not pareidolia, but also like
Right.
I saw a Picasso exhibit where it was all Picasso's sculpture, and it was all funny things like that he'd found. Like, oh, here's a bicycle seat and the handlebars, and it looks like a bull's head with horns and stuff like that.
Right.
And you know,
And
you sort of see it. Yeah.
These hands, I've had these for years. They're these little cheap tripods that you buy with like a dollar store. There's these foam tripods. I'm like, well, I'm never gonna use a tripod, but I bet you I could use those for fingers on a hand.
You know what's really funny is I have those holding up my cameras right now.
Yeah, well, I used to get them because the mount for the camera is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but you know, for $1, and I run through those so fast because they break really fast. So I had like 4 of them, and I'm like, I think there's enough there to make some fingers. And so that's C-3PO, and
I gotta mute myself when I.
No.
Wait.
Actually,
protocols when
let's-
guests go away.
No, let's talk about this for a second, okay? Because Steve was talking about having like the costumer's eye while you're going through Home Depot.
Mhm.
And you taught me how to do this, and it's like learning how to read. It's something that no one can take away from you ever again.
Right.
And so I'm still
Well, it
I'll
sounds like
still
a
go
blessing
through
and a
Home Depot and
curse.
Be like, oh, this would make for a great sci-fi light.
Yes.
when I was
Yeah, then you just end up buying a lot of junk at Home Depot for future puppets that you're not going to
it's
make.
really
yeah.
hard not to get into that.
I have a show called Robot Parts.
Yeah, well, like I've routinely thrown out bins where, you know, like, well, I'm never going to do anything with that. And then, of course, a week later, oh, I wish I had that thing I just threw out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this
That's
one,
another incredible puppet, yes.
she has these things light up, but the wire broke about a week ago, so I have to
Oh.
that. But her eyes, let's see what we got here. So
This
her
is good. I
eyes-
like puppetry. This is good. I'm loving it. It's sort of like cosplay in a way.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, it's the same stuff. I mean,
Yes.
Well, did you ever record the video of you as Nub Nguyen with the?
I haven't done a good recording of it yet, but
Yeah, he has an Admiral Akbar little hand puppet, right? And he does this ventriloquist act with
Right.
where he is in cosplay.
yeah. So I have a cosplay 9 and then I come out and I speak gibberish. You know, the
Oh,
night.
brilliant. Oh, that's a great act. Oh, I
And
love
then
it. Yes.
I have this mask that I made where if I do very small movements with my mouth, the mouth doesn't move. But if I do exaggerated, the jaw will actually move with me talking. So I do that, and then I'll go, you know, and
Yeah.
I bring out this little Akbar puppet, and Akbar does all the punchlines. So you're like, you know, to get to the other side, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
That was the old lady, that was my wife, and I just do that, and then that's the whole thing, and it's very Andy Kaufman type.
Yeah, that's great. That's a very original puppetry.
Well,
I don't know. There's lots of people. I mean, I guess who's out? There's Jeff Dunham has done very well.
Mhm.
Yeah, hasn't he? With
The,
really just doing the old-fashioned act, but bringing it.
What's
forward.
been really
yeah.
funny is when I've done it every time. There's been other ventriloquists in the act. I'm like, oh my god, what is this? The ventriloquist, you know?
Yeah, that's a new bit. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm the only one that's not a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need to be a ventriloquist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
Yeah,
nobody really cares about, like, in a way. I mean, I've seen ventriloquists where their lips totally move. I don't care because I'm looking at the puppet. It just depends, though. Like, the people that want to be skeptical want your lips not to move, you know. And those people are never happy anyway.
Well, there's this great podcast I listen to called Under the Puppet, and this guy
Under the puppet, it sounds so serious.
Well, yeah, it's
Or X-rated.
great. He does this thing. And
Under
I've
the
always wanted to be
puppet.
on it. I've always wanted to be on it. I'm you know. He always asks us questions like, "What's your first exposure to puppetry?" You know, as a
Mhm.
kid, and they always say, you know, Sesame Street or whatever. And when I started thinking about it, it's like my first, like I remember watching Mr. Rogers and and Sesame Street and all that. But my first idea that actually there was a puppeteer was on Soap. Jay Johnson used to do the ventriloquism on there. Yeah. And it was like, that was my kind of exposure. Like, oh, there's guys actually doing this stuff. This is pretty amazing, you know? And
we had a pretty good tradition in Britain again of having ventriloquist shows. You know, they'd have these, variety shows. Variety TV was still popular, right. So ventriloquist still had a pretty good airing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Henson shop with the Muppets kind of started.
Then Henson took it over. Yeah.
Yeah, but it started on SNL before they had the Muppet Show.
Oh, yeah, they had. Well, I mean, they
were doing stuff commercial
and on local TV.
Yeah, but that was that kind of their first foray into adult puppetry, which was what they were trying to do with the Muppet Show or what at least make it more
like family entertainment.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a great biography, a biography of Henson, very fat biography, but it talks about like the early days, him doing in local TV. In the beginning, he didn't know how to end a sketch, so he just always ended with the things blowing up.
Yeah.
That's not a bad default.
That's a good default.
Sorry.
So we saw C-3PO. We've seen Rosie.
Here's Rosie, which
and then I know you have Crow and Tom Servo because you have those already.
What's that?
You have those already. There's Data.
Data. I could go grab Data.
Let's see Data.
Like Steve could have his own Mystery Science Theater 5000.
Yeah,
something like that, where it's just him commenting on stuff.
He also has puppets of his own characters. Like we saw Mayberry, but there's Roberta Smith and Pfeffer, which he says he still has the head of, and then there's Ralph. Oh, you're rebuilding her. There's Ralph. I'm trying to think of all the characters' names. It's been so long since I've.
Ralph Xenobot, but he got stolen, so I got to rebuild him too.
Really?
What kind of a person?
Here's the one I've been working on that I haven't finished, which is number Johnny 5.
Johnny 5, yes, that's good. Yes.
What was that
movie? Do you have the mechanism working?
What's that?
Do you have the mechanism working?
Sort of. Like, well, if I plug him in, I can get his mouth working too. But
what?
Wow, they're really good. See, they look so good.
That was Short Circuit.
Short Circuit.
Oh. Yeah.
And Short Circuit too. Wasn't there a Short Circuit too?
Yes, there was a Short Circuit too.
And Short Circuit off Broadway.
Well, have you ever seen the Short Circuit movies? They're adorable.
The first one, yeah,
they're
definitely.
so old. I can't even remember those.
It's in the 80s when technology was still magic, right? and technology could do anything.
I like this.
There's Data, which I don't.
Yeah, that's Data.
So Data was an interesting one too.
Data. People like Data. My friend likes Data. She's a sort of Star Trek fan. She's like one of those people that's obsessed with Data.
I like Data a lot too. But he has things about him that I've never done on a puppet before. But I've always wanted to do. One of the ones was I want to do an integrated nose. Like I always hate the seam that goes around the nose. So his nose is actually part of his skull.
Ooh, so you did the pins?
Oh yeah, he's better. I like him in profile.
Normally there's a seam around that.
He looks like Brent Spiner in profile.
Yes, he's more like him in profile.
His mouth is very Brent Spiner-y too.
Yes, there's definitely you definitely got it. You definitely got it. Yeah, it's definitely.
I've never done the Bunsen Honeydew type mouth, the small one. I've never done.
Bunsen Honeydew is my favorite. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, but don't forget his body design was from your female puppet. Your what's her name? The jiggly one.
Yeah. So her arm actually was from Jalea, but I
Jalea Bates. That's right.
Yeah, which is funny. The two humanoid robots I've done have actually been the most human-like puppets that I've done. But yeah, so there's Data. I don't do a very good Data voice, but.
Well, you just have to sound confused.
I want to see the show or the opera that's coming. That's gonna come out of this.
Well,
now you guys did show. They did that movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And I looked at that and I thought, isn't that what Amber was doing? Are these people supposed to be like, what? You guys were all doing that, weren't you, at one point?
The shop I worked for actually worked on that movie. In fact, when I was being kind of trained how to sew for puppets, they were building the harpy puppets for that.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I totally thought of you guys when I saw that movie. I was like, yeah, they're doing that. That's them.
It was like a vampire puppet. It was like a vampire opera.
So
Right.
from what I remember, when Steve was in college, he made a student film of
Yes.
Melonpool.
Right.
And did you ever
Yes,
finish
I
remaking
recall
it?
that now. Yes, I
what?
saw that at some point.
Did you ever finish remaking it?
No, so there was a lot of problems that happened with that movie. It's a bane of my existence. I wish I could. I keep thinking about redoing it, but we got 2 puppets that were stolen. One of our cast members died. We lost the shop, and then I ended up having to throw out the set because we lost the shop.
Was it Linda? When you're saying someone who died?
No, she died a couple years later after that.
Okay.
But no,
Okay.
it was Earl Kress died.
I don't think I met Earl.
Earl was he was actually a cartoon writer. He wrote a bunch of Transformers episodes and different shows over the years. And in fact, that's where I got Tom Servo. Was his widow gave me his old Tom Servo. I always had the stuff to build them, but I never did anything with it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a really cute puppet as well, though. They're also beautifully made. See, they look wonderful. And my friend Teresa's checking in there. Hi, Teresa. Yeah, she loves those puppets. Yes.
What I find interesting about the puppet that you have right now is that when you made it, people thought it was made to teach people about service dogs.
Right.
But you just made it because you just thought it'd be funny to have a service dog puppet.
No, so what happened was I went to Gen Con, and on the way back, a guy smuggled his service dog onto the plane in a service dog harness.
That's
His dog
an old
was
one.
running up and down the aisle for 2 hours. The flight attendants were there with flashlights looking for him, and after the 2 hours, like, I got to do something with this dog. This is too funny. And I had always wanted. I built the Tilly puppet. I have a dog Tilly, and I couldn't come up with a voice for her. But I was like, I should come up with another dog that is, is more that I can do the voice of. And I love the show Frasier, and so I was doing Eddie. I was thinking maybe there was an Eddie.
So you made Moose.
So I made Moose, and I was like, well, what does Eddie sound like? And then this whole therapy thing came about. So Eddie is my bad impersonation of Frasier. So it's like let me think. Now I can't do it. I am Eddie the therapy dog. As you may know, I am fully licensed because I bought this $21 vest.
Ain't that the truth?
It's pretty amazing how much I can get through. I can go wherever I would like, based on my my $21 vest.
Yes, I love that accent, Frasier accent. I'm not sure what it is. It's not an English accent.
It's not an English
it's definitely an American accent, but it's a very
mid-Atlantic. It's a mid-Atlantic. I actually had to look it up. How what is Frasier's accent?
Yeah.
And apparently it's the same that Kate, Katharine Hepburn had, and Cary Grant. They would do this. There was this early days of movies and TV. They were afraid that English people couldn't understand Americans, and Americans couldn't understand English people.
So they created this mid-Atlantic
fake accent that they all would use.
Not mid-Atlantic states, but middle of the Atlantic between
US
and England.
Both Kelsey Grammer and Niles. What's his name?
David Hyde.
I think it goes to like P.G. Wodehouse as well, which I love P.G. Wodehouse. I don't know. Amber, have you ever read P.G. Wodehouse?
No, I haven't read it.
You really should read because very, very funny. And he does some of them, and they love to go back and forth to New York and stuff. And he's got one character who is American, Hamilton Beamish, who's sort of very energetic guy who's sort of like a lot of his characters are quite sort of avuncular, and they sort of pop around and he sort of goes around and sorts out all the young people's problems in one way or another. Yeah. I love Hamilton Beamish. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, they're all good. But you have to sort of read them because I know on the surface of it, Amber, you'd be like, who wants to read about posh British people?
Who doesn't?
I don't know. I read Modesty Blaze and I enjoyed it very much, and that's pretty much about posh British people.
Which one?
Who are spies. Yeah, Modesty Blaze. It was
Modesty Blaze. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I never got that.
Comic in England.
You read it all, did you? Yeah.
I have 3 volumes of Modesty Blaze, so I don't have all of the volumes, but
it was very popular.
They gathered them a couple years ago. Oh, is that your Tilly dog?
So this is Daisy. This is actually. So I have this coworker who we would bring our dogs into work, and so I bring Tilly and I bring Daisy, or she would bring Daisy, and they got along really well. So she had this little corgi, and so I ended up making her as well. And she's got these ears that, you know,
yeah, that's
because
great.
her legs are so short, she doesn't have arm rods, so she, you know.
Oh yeah, like a corgi.
Like a corgi.
Yeah.
So were you doing puppets all along, and the comics was sort of sidetracked, or did the comics sort of teach you something about making puppets?
So let me 1 second here. So what happened is I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. That was basically all I wanted to do.
Okay. Yes.
Right out of high school, I was like, okay, well, Charles Schultz did it for 50 years, or and he was 26 when he started. I'll have it by 19, no problem.
Yeah, I know.
And I started sending off all the packets, and I sent out over 100 submissions, and it got rejected every single time. And I ended up, how was the chronology of it? Basically, was that it just wasn't working. And at the same time, I was still in college, and so I was in college. Oh yeah, and I was in a class about a filmmaking class, and I was making a Charlie Chaplin film where I was dressed as Charlie Chaplin and did the whole thing. We filmed 2 out of the 3 days, and then I lost the bully and the damsel and the girl in the same week, and so we never were able to finish this film. So I had this class due when my friend Eric says, well, is there anything else you want to do? And I said, well, I'll do an animation of my comic because I know that, but I can't do animation. Let's do puppets. And that was kind of the beginning of it. So I was 22 years old, and I went home, and I had bought material to make a Mayberry years before, probably when I was about 12 years old. And I started kind of cobbling together the first head, and it was terrible. But it was good enough. I was like, okay, I'll ask my grandmother, because she sewed, if she could make a tube for the arm so that I can at least have a head that I could use in this movie idea. And I go over there, and she goes, I have a better idea. Why don't you come over here? Because she and my grandfather lived about a mile from my college. She's like, come over here 2 or 3 times a week, and we'll build these puppets. And so we built 4 puppets in 3 weeks. And then I'd made a bunch of Star Trek movies when I was in high school. I was in high school. And so I still
so you had done, I was going to say, it didn't occur to you to do it like in a live action, like Star Trek or something.
So I had the set of the Bridge of the Enterprise in my parents' garage. We redressed that. That was their spaceship. Because we had done the Charlie Chaplin, we had already gotten permission to film in this historical park in my hometown. And so that became the back lot where we would shoot all of our city scenes. And so basically it's up on YouTube. If you look up the Melonpool movie, it's...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw it at some point. I remember looking at it back in the day.
It's definitely a student film.
Yeah.
I've seen it. We watched it together, and I remember, it's definitely a student film, but it has heart.
Right. But then, then after we did that, I was coloring comic books in my first the Melonpool comic. First, the Melonpool Chronicles came out, and so I was doing San Diego Comic-Con, and we had the puppets, and so Clydeen was like, she goes, why don't you, man the booth? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And the first day, there were people in costumes, like at that time there weren't a lot of cosplayers, but there were a lot of people who were like dressed for such and such property as the character. I'm like, I got these puppets at home. I'm going to bring them in. And so that's how it all started. Was we just started bringing the puppets in to bring
to sell the books.
Sell the books. And then after about 10 years of doing that, I was like, I like doing the puppets better than I like doing the books.
Well, you definitely got a talent with the puppets. They look amazing. Yes. So
yeah. So this is the last one I'll show you, but I'm running out of things to show.
Oh, that's Tilly.
This is Tilly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm all screwed up in here. Again, I learned things on every puppet I build. So, okay, so she's there, and she's got another one of those ear mechs that kind of works now, but it's a little. They shake. Yeah, so they'll shake, but they also have a mechanism in there that make them pop back.
Shit.
Yeah, but what I learned on this one was the arms are way too stiff, and so Eddie's has the same pattern for the body and the arms, but they're just a little bit engineered a little bit different so that I can use it a little bit better. But I couldn't find a voice for her, so that's how Eddie kind of came about.
Maybe she should be like Harpo.
Could it be an old Jewish man or woman?
That's Chris. Give us your voice. Chris has got a voice he can do.
Oh, sweetie, don't worry about it. You know what they say? Just go home, have a glass of Chardonnay.
Is that what your dog sounds like?
That's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's talk about, going back to puppets and stuff like that. I know you and I are both members of the Facebook group, Puppet Makers Workshop, which you totally need to post to more, because he'll post to his regular Facebook like, oh, I'm working on these puppets, and not post there. Yeah. And it's like you have progress pics. That's what people want to see.
I'm getting better about it.
But what I've learned from being part of that group though is that your first puppet always sucks.
Oh yeah.
And it's as you build, you get better over time. You learn things. You learn how to handle the materials better and stuff like that. And there's just been some really amazing work in that group. And you were probably one of the top posters. I think you have the top contributor badge.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. I tell you, so much can be done with cheap, cardboard, upholstery foam, and sweatshirt material.
Well, wait! But you made a puppet that was on Glee.
Yeah, I made. Well, so DJ and we did 16 puppets of basically every actor in Glee. We did.
Oh! You did like a puppet episode for Glee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're really up there in the puppetry.
I always say that I'm at the very top of amateur or the very bottom of professional. So.
Yes, well, I'm sure that's a very fine line, but yes, that's amazing. No, I'd say that puts you in the upper echelon in my mind. Yeah.
I actually designed and drew all the tattoos on the Ed Sheeran puppet that they used for the couple of videos.
Great!
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually got, I think it was 2014 MTV Music Video of the Year for this one that we did. That was fun. And then about a year later, BJ gets a call and says, "Do you still have that Ed Sheeran puppet?" And he's like, "You took that. What's the matter?" And he goes, "Well, Ed decided he's not going to be in his next video. So we want to film another one with that puppet." So they tracked it down, and there's a second video out there with him doing the puppet doing everything that Ed was going to do in the original video.
That's a good idea. Well, Amber had replaced herself with a puppet on this show in recent weeks.
That is why I have, and sometimes MoCat as my thing, because
MoCat was like Amber, but slightly more obnoxious for some reason, even though it just
for my job, I had to look into VTuber avatars, and so I basically had to make one to figure it out, and I made a purple cat with yellow eyes, very similar to my spontaneous cat.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, and nobody can look at it straight without laughing.
No, MoCat was very badly behaved.
I guess that Spawn's mouth. Because we talked about building one where this could telescope in, so it could actually shut its mouth. And
we were talking about having like an aperture or something. So his mouth would open and the teeth would just stay flat, but it would be like the mouth opening. Yeah, we could never figure it out without trying to making it look like a predator or something.
Right.
Yeah, well, exactly. Our guest was talking about something quite reasonably serious, and then MoCat's like in the corner, like going. And we're like, is Amber even there? Like
that was my favorite part. That MoCat would go like this, and just the eyes would be all cute.
Yeah. It's sometimes I would step away and get coffee. So
you're telling us things that I'm pretty sure MoCat wouldn't have.
I around with that. What was it? The character animator, Adobe Character Animator. While. You want to talk about where you could kind of do the head turns and whatnot. And I made a Mayberry, and
really,
I did something really weird with it because for some reason, one eye would always do this, would like just pop out of his socket, and just kind of. it was so weird. You can never figure it out.
Yeah, you had your points off. Then
something like that,
there's the technology for it's gotten a lot better. You could probably redo it and then have it. Yeah, like for example, the point facial recognition that's in the Animaze program that I use for that VTuber avatar. It's amazing. You know, it's probably some of the best facial recognition stuff that I've seen in a while. And it doesn't like recognize my my identity, but it recognizes my facial expression, what my eyes are doing, the tilt of my head, and it works live. It's actually pretty neat for a digital puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to bounce a little more.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't have little movements. And I guess that's true of all puppetry, is you can't have little movements.
Well, or you should. Like, that, my biggest thing is that, like, there's really, like, I get so nervous, I just am all over the place. That's kind of what ends up happening with me. But I was watching this thing with Frank Oz being interviewed, and he's like, I hate these puppet shows, like these horrible puppet shows that are always doing this.
Yeah.
And he goes, and Dave Gold is on it, and he goes, so do a good puppet show for us. And he goes,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's very, Well, Frank Oz also talked about in interviews about curves. And he says that in animation, you know, you think in terms of curves, and you think in terms of like anticipatory poses and stuff like that. And Frank Oz's parents were puppets, puppeteers. Puppeteers is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
and he didn't want to be. Yeah, he didn't want to be part of the family business, but they always talked to him about when animation was like new, when he was a little kid and stuff, about, oh, this is basically puppetry with line. Look at the curves. And so when he auditioned for the Henson Company, he's like, okay, I'm just going to do it in curves. And they're like, you're an amazing puppeteer.
Yeah.
You know, like, but again, it was in his blood.
Well, there's a lot of stuff, and they don't really do this, but I've always thought that there was, you know, the kind of, you know, the anticipation that you get in animation, that you get, you know, it's like you're gonna walk and it's like, you know,
like the head moves up.
Yeah, there's a sort of bounce, sort of squash, some element of squash and stretch.
Yeah. I've always, you know, one of the puppets I keep thinking about building, I don't know that I will, but I want to build Dynamite from Hanna-Barbera, and he had these arms that would telescope out, and I thought, oh, it'd be really cool to figure out a way to do something like that. That would be a really cool surprise. So.
Yeah.
Telescoping limbs? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Those puppets, the punching puppets, right? And you could do a similar mechanism to that.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about doing was, and who knows if I can even get this to work, but I was thinking about having a real, like a spring-loaded, like a spindle inside the body, and that would have the arms on it, and so they would just like almost just you know, pull out and then spring back in. That was kind of the idea I was thinking about.
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying about what Frank Oz said. I mean, I think it's about like the controlled movement. It could be a big movement or a little movement, but I guess the thing is, it's like, oh, is it a controlled movement? You know, control kids. But some of the Muppets definitely come on flapping their arms about.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you have this whole thing like you're listening, where he says that's kind of the best problem with bad puppetry is they never listen, or you never really believe, or like, you know, taking a breath before you start talking. You know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not a great puppeteer, but
yes, you've got to sort of become the puppet and really.
Yeah, one thing I thought was kind of funny is there was a time when Kermit was guest starring on a show, and they mic'd Kermit and not Jim Henson.
Yeah. I just saw that last night.
Yeah, and there was also other times when someone was talking about they were interviewing Gonzo for something, and it was during COVID, so they had, you know, the teleconference set up, and so the puppeteer comes up and he's doing technical check. Okay, you know, can you hear me? Can you see me? And everything like that. And he pops down, and then Gonzo pops up. And he said, you know, it was the puppeteer, but in everybody's mind, that was Gonzo's tech guy.
I've had that happen to me. I've actually been interviewed for, you know, Comic-Con, and they'll you know they'll ask a question and they'll go right to the puppet with the mic.
Yeah.
It's kind of flattering.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the suspension of disbelief too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I guess you just have to talk extra loud.
Right.
But there's something about us that's sort of quite hardwired that if the puppet is talking, then the puppet is sort of more important than the person that's operating it.
It should be. I mean, that's you're putting all your performance up into the arm, you know?
Yeah.
There's the divorce too, where puppets and characters that are outside of yourself can say things that you yourself wouldn't say.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about George Carlin and the fact that I've read all of his books and I'm currently reading Last Words. And he talks about in there that, you know, he had all these characters like the hippy dippy weatherman and you know, the wino radio and stuff that were these characters that were saying things, but he wasn't really making strides in his career until he himself put himself in the shoes of speaking.
Yeah.
You know, and so with puppets, you can have like think about Courage the dog.
Yes.
Right? You know, he can get away with saying some very crass things because he's a puppet. He's a rubber puppet with a cigar in his mouth, and people just go, "Oh, it's just
Triumph."
Triumph.
Yes, that's why I want the puppet of Noma.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Triumph.
Triumph's got
comedy dog.
Yeah, but that's why I want the puppet of Noma of my characters. You know, first of all, she's sort of little and comical thing there, but she's always like, I mean, I based her on my neighbour who said, she was like, put me in your comic. So I said, I'm going to put you in a small blue annoying gnome. But then she sort of could say all the things that I couldn't really say. And like, she was sort of my heckler, you know, talking of hecklers. We had a heckler today. And
I found him on my channel.
Hecklers have got something to get out. Like the heckler
I don't know if you guys
can
still read it, but I banned it on my side. So
I like his heckle, whatever. She's my little blue heckler. You know, and she's on the end of my arm. Or in my pen and in the comic, and she'll be sort of saying all those things that I wouldn't say.
Yes,
I get that a little bit with. I can do it with Mayberry, and I can do it with the characters that I am really like have developed or figured out over the years. I can usually improv, and they'll say things that I would never say.
Yes. But I can say
Eddie is getting that way now. I'll do Eddie, and you know, I'll be, you know, the joke that I always do with Eddie is, you know, it's like, you know, tell me your problem, and they'll tell me a problem, and they're like, oh, well, scratch my head, and scratches his head, and I'm like, okay, your problem's solved. And that's basically what I say over and over again. But the things that I can get away with as a dog that I could never get away with is just like some guy is pretty amazing.
Yes, right.
I would like
get away with it. Yeah, somehow they get away with it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, yes, and people come up and they say, oh, you know, I like that character. You know, women will come up to me and say, oh, they like Noma, and she's a good character.
Yeah.
And that always made me very happy.
Well, Ian and I were remarking the other day, we're catching up on Hellsing. Ian's never seen it before. I've seen it before, but, you know, it's an anime. And we realized that in a lot of Japanese animes watching this, you have the asshole characters that just, you know, are just peg knockers of other characters. Mm-hmm. And this exists in anime, but not really in Japanese culture. And so it's almost like the mangaka and the creators of the animes and the mangas and stuff are living vicariously through these characters that are speaking for them, that they can't speak up for themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting how projection works.
Yes. Well, there was some research on like sort of virtual reality and all this, and they said they really decided that human consciousness just very quickly adapts to whatever form it's put into. You know, you can put us into a spider body, and you know we move around like we can adapt that. Well, like even when we're driving our cars, they become sort of extensions of our body. Mm-hmm. So it's a very powerful thing. When somebody
hits your car, you don't say they hit my car; you say they hit me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that kind of the extension of where the trolls came from? You know, the internet troll. A lot of them would never say anything like that in real life, but
well, we just had a heckler today, you know, who I doubt that guy would come up and approach me in person and say the things that he was typing.
Well, I think that was sounding like
probably one of our friends. It's probably somebody we know.
No, it was just somebody on Twitter or on Twitch, and again, I banned him on my page. And then I banned him in Restream chat as well, but I don't know if you guys can still see them.
Well, we're very curious to have them watch the show, and you know, we love to hear people's comments, but you know,
I mean,
you got to keep it within the bounds of you know, reasonable conversation.
Well,
please.
I hate to do that. I have to get back to my day job, but
no worries.
Good.
Yes.
Well, thanks for taking time off.
Thank you. I honestly thought it was going to be at noon, and then I was like, "Oh my God, 9 o'clock this morning."
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. Yeah.
Thanks,
No
Steve.
worries. Well,
No,
we'd love to have you back
when
again.
I posted, it's noon Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
saw
I went 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time,
Yeah.
noon Eastern Standard Time.
I saw that this morning, and I was like, because I was thinking, oh, I can log into work and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, oh my god, because I started at 9.
It's
I
hard
go
work
there,
doing these things.
Okay, I'll be in an hour.
Yes. No. I sort of I was sort of handed over some responsibility to Amber, so we got some Amber.
Yeah, that's fine.
So there's some hiccups while I get used to it. So
It's okay. I've never done this type of podcast before, so it's good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for spending some time with us and sharing your puppets and
yeah.
Well, that was wonderful, Steve. Thank you.
I'm sure you still have stacks of books you want to sell. And
I still have them all on Amazon. You just like I did a bunch of Tilly books. I think I've all told I've done like 19 books over the years. So.
Oh goodness, yeah. So Steve Troop, Steve with a V, Troop TROOP. Easy to find.
Yeah, we're gonna.
And then I'm putting in the chat your website.
Melonpool, which I haven't updated in at least 6 years, but
but it's still sort of in your mind. It's still there.
Yeah,
you did an April 1st comic like 3 years ago. Because that's what I grabbed for the.
Oh yeah, that was like the last one.
Yeah. So not too terrible.
No, I mean one of these days I'll come back and I can talk about drawing because that's a whole other thing. But...
Yeah, that's a whole we talked about. That was wonderful talking about puppets and seeing your amazing work.
Cool. All right, I will talk to you guys later.
All right, bye, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Have a nice day at work, dear.
Thank you. Oh yeah.
All right, bye. Oh, good times.
It's like when people say like when you tell people you're going for like a root canal and they're like, "Have fun."
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
What I think of is have fun storming the castle.
Now where's that from?
That's from The Princess Bride.
That's great.
What
have
you
fun
never? Have fun storming the castle.
I don't remember that line specifically from that, but I was just talking to my daughter about that yesterday. I was like, "Have you seen that movie? Did I show it to her?" Because I always try to show her the really cool stuff that I think holds up. And she really likes it, and I still like that movie.
Well, here's the interesting thing: is I read the book a couple years ago. Oh. They are both wonderful, the book and the movie. I recommend watching the movie first and then reading the book. And it's one of the rare things that I recommend opposite of reading the book first and then watching the movie, because Goldsmith, the guy who wrote the book, also wrote the screenplay. Right. And so they are both the same story and yet completely different from each other. There's some stuff out of order from the book to the movie, but the movie is such a wonderful experience. I don't want to ruin that by saying read the book first. Does that make sense? The movie didn't ruin the book, but I feel like the book would ruin the movie.
Yeah. But Peter Falk reads the book in the movie, so I think you can just watch the movie.
But that's just it. Is like the book he's reading from, and Goldsmith talks about this in the book itself. Is he is referencing a book that doesn't really exist, right? It's the fiction that there's this book about the Princess Bride, and in the movie he's skipping to the best parts, but in the book it's just what he could remember. and so he's like, okay, I don't really remember what happened from here to here, but then this happens, right? And it's funny because again, you're skipping to the best parts of the story, and in the book he chronicles his adventure to try and find the book that he remembered reading once. And that he's recollecting and writing down his recollections. And so it's like this half adventure of him trying to find this book that doesn't exist because he invented the book for the book.
Wait, that's like a subplot?
Yeah, it's like a subplot in the book. Yeah. Huh. And the line of what is it? Something blah blah blah. Someone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something, right? Life is pain. Anybody who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something, right? In the book, that's Fezzik's mom who said that to Fezzik.
I don't even remember that line. That sounds like something Billy Crystal would have said.
No. It's said by Carl Jules. It's just before the sword fight between him and Inigo Montoya, right? And it's like, oh well, that's pain. He says life is pain. Anybody who tells you otherwise is trying to tell you something or trying to sell you something, right? And anyway, but in the book is this whole long story of Fezzik's parents who were awful people, who, his mom said this to him and it stuck with him, but he always believed in the good in people and stuff. And there's this whole backstory for Andre the Giant's character that's not in the movie.
I just saw, like, it was 9 years. I think it was maybe 9 or 10 years after the movie started, and it was an interview with everybody in it, the cast.
Yeah.
And they were all saying, like, what an incredible, like, amazing time it was. And, that experience comes along, like, once in a lifetime. And they had, what's his name? The sword fighter. What is that guy's name?
Inigo Montoya.
Well, his real name, whatever his Sid. What is his name? Well, it doesn't matter. He was saying, like, and that was very early on in his career, and what, like, a great experience that was. That is a rare thing.
Yeah.
Oh, is it my turn to draw?
I was drawing. This is page 15. I'm starting to work on it.
Amber, do you feel like you're getting more done by doing this on the show than you would without the show?
Well, I try and steal time as much as I can to draw, and when we're talking on the show, we don't have a guest. We are categorized as art.
Yeah, now you're making me feel guilty. Well, I'm gonna I've got some things I can.
Yeah, you should draw.
I'm putting you down, for a yes on that answer.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you have an audience, you do more, and then if you don't, even though you've got more
that's one of the reasons why I started streaming every time I draw, is because I feel obligated to stay and draw. If I'm not streaming, I will play on my phone and call it drawing. Does that make sense? Yeah. So
because I have these they're basically audio tutorials and, like, putting together songs and stuff like that. And sometimes doing the tutorials gets me to actually do more work. Strangely enough, you would think it would work the opposite way. Yeah. You would think, like, well, instead of finishing that song, you're going to do that tutorial.
Yeah.
But they've actually worked out pretty well.
Well, I've got a little.
Yeah, I'm still in an early stage of the page. I'm still working on the sketches. So, it's rough.
Well, I could tell already what this is. Clearly, it is a pig. I don't know.
It's a warthog.
So it's pretty close.
Zardo's head. Oh, what happened to Dale?
What happened to Dale?
I don't know. We didn't have Dale this morning.
Did we upset Dale?
I didn't see him trying to
behind the cloud.
Get in.
Did he fall asleep?
Dude, I almost slept past this today. I left my phone out in the car. I picked up my daughter at her boyfriend's house at like 11 last night, and I left my phone in the car. And the only reason I woke up is because my computer, my big old desktop computer, my tower, made a noise. An alert noise to tell me about the show. Otherwise, I don't know.
I set an alarm for myself, so so that I don't forget the day. And in fact, Ian thought today was Tuesday. And so, I'm making coffee for myself. I'm getting set up for the show. And he's like, "What are you doing? We have to go to the gym." I'm like, it's Tuesday or it's Wednesday. Today's the day for my thing.
Gym day.
I go to the gym every day.
That's like another world for me. Last time I went to the gym regularly was probably 15 years ago.
When I wanted to start losing weight, I was at 182 pounds. Now I'm at 162. So I've lost 20 pounds since I've been starting to go to the gym, and it's slow progress. I'm starting to feel like my body's starting to become something again. I honestly feel better. I recommend it for everybody. It's fights disease and fatigue and blah 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 blah. But I can't force you to go to the gym. And
that's right, Amber. You can't. So stop trying.
I'm not.
In a real subtle, roundabout way.
Oh, there's no subtlety about it, sweetie. Yeah, it's just.
I gave up my gym. I gave up my gym for gin. No, I gave it up for a garden. Well, I didn't really give it up. I just stopped doing it. And for a while, I had a bunch of free weights, like serious free weights, in my studio. And I was pretty hardcore about that for a while. But now really all I do is walk a dog and have a garden. I'm on the
I mean, I have a small garden because we live in an apartment. So I don't have dirt that I can plant in.
Oh, you have an herb garden.
There's some spinach in there, and I have peppers, so I have some other things besides just herbs. And then I have a lot of flowers, so it's mostly a flower garden. But eating healthy and being active are the most important things. Like, you don't necessarily have to go to the gym if you're like walking everywhere, or that's why there's very low obesity in New York City, is because it's a walking city. Everybody walks, everyone takes the subway in New York. And so they're active most of the time when they're outside of their apartment. And because the apartments are so small, people are outside of their apartment most of the time. And so you have that reflected in other cities, like here in Denver, because we have the mountains here in Denver, and there's the sand dunes, and there's the Garden of the Gods, and all these national parks and stuff. People are very active here, walking, biking, trail riding and stuff. And I know San Francisco also has a low obesity population.
Oh yeah, no, people are very energetic. My dad commented when he came to San Francisco, he says, when you go to the park, you see everyone sort of running around and jogging about and being active. Like, where in England, they're sitting around drinking beer.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ian travels a lot for his work, so he'll go to Nebraska, he'll go to, Wyoming, a lot of places in the Midwest. He'll go to Nevada and stuff. And he says that when you are in like Nebraska, everybody's overweight. And it's not that absolutely everyone's overweight, but that's the type of food that is served there. And so Ian and I found that when you travel, the best food to eat when you travel, at least in the United States, is breakfast food, because it's really hard to mess up eggs. But you go to a region that's used to eating a lot of heavy, greasy food, and your stomach's not going to feel good if you're used to light green food like Ian and I are. And so so that's
you guys eat like birds? You guys eat like grazing animals?
We eat healthy. We have meat almost every meal. But
you have meat every meal.
I said almost every meal.
Meat?
Yeah, it's
so you're not on that page that kills you. You're not on that page like meat kills you.
No, I love meat. Meat's delicious.
Well, yes, it is delicious, but some people do believe it kills you. Not me, but other people.
No, I think a lot of vegans, and I know our guest next week, Kane, is vegan.
You're
so this might come up. But I know a lot of vegans and a lot of vegetarians don't like the treatment of animals, and they don't like the destruction to the environment that's caused from raising cattle and and different things like that. But if you really look at it, industrial farming in general is destructive to the environment. It doesn't matter if it's cattle or if it's corn. And
that's right. I mean,
a lot of those moral arguments, work on the small scale, but when you start talking about the large scale, it's like, so do you grow all your own food then, where you can guarantee that it's not exploiting migrants, that it's not destroying the environment with pesticides and weed killers? Can you do that for me? And a lot of vegetarians and vegans can't. And so that's my personal argument against it. When they start attacking the morality of it. That being said, I still think it's important to have vegan and vegetarian meals as part of your diet, because it's important to just kind of spread out your nutrients. And if you're eating the same kinds of foods all the time, you're cutting other nutrients out of your diet. And so variety is
diversity for health.
Yeah, diversity for health. So variety is my my rallying cry. So I'm all over vegetarian and vegan dishes that are delicious, right? I'm all over like squash casseroles, and my friend taught me how to make squash spaghetti, and just cool things where you're just you're not reliant on, you know, meat in every meal. You're not reliant on like the same types of breads or noodles. And when I couldn't eat beef, I had to expand my diet. And so now that I can eat beef again after my pregnancy, because anatomy is weird, so is biology.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah. Now that I can eat beef again, I'm glad that I have a wider variety of dishes that I can eat, because I accepted those vegetarian and vegan dishes into my life. You know, I wasn't going to say, oh, that's their food. I was going to say, what of their food can I grab that's delicious? You know, and yeah, so that's my rant.
My daughter was a vegetarian up until like a month ago, and I was so happy to see her eat meat again, because I really think people are designed to eat meat, and if you don't, you just have to be careful. Like vegans have to be careful.
Well, we've been doing it for a long time. Our ancestors,
yes.
they reckon, started cracking open bones for the marrow bones that other predators had left. That's what they think at the moment. You know, that's how we got the taste, began to eat meat.
And yeah, I mean, we, you know, bone marrow has a lot of fat in it. So does a brain. So, you know, fat has a lot of calories in it. So that makes sense. If you're one of those old timey people. But yeah, I was just glad to see my daughter reintroduce meat, because I always like worried in the back of my head. She's done it for so many years and she's a teenager. And if she's not being careful about it, you know, like taking B12, and if we're not maybe checking some other stuff, she could get some vitamin deficiency, which isn't a big deal, you know, if you're my age, because your body's fully baked, like, but she's like half baked, you know.
Yeah.
I'm very like cautious about that stuff. But yeah, I agree with like what you said. Like, I don't want to eat badly treated animals.
Yeah.
I don't want animals to be treated badly. And I also don't want to eat unhealthy animals, you know, which if they were treated badly and fed badly and all these other things, they're probably not healthy.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be eating them.
And, you know, honestly, like Ian and I, we also will buy deli meat over packaged meat. You know, so where they, you know, you're going like, I want a pound of bacon, and they have to take the bacon and put it in the paper for you. And
you just want them to touch it? Just want some touched meat?
Well, that's probably better for you, because you get the bacteria and, you know, the healthy bacteria.
It's better for you. It's the shelf life on it.
That's what I was going to say, the shelf life.
The shelf life on it is shorter because there's not preservatives in deli meat.
No, but those butchers, they've got the healthy bacteria. Meat. The butchers have been working with the meat, so they've got the bacteria that sort of, you know, help to deal with the.
They've been in the back handling bats and stuff, and they just come straight into work after handling their pet bats.
Oh yeah, sure. No, I mean, in all seriousness, we choose
our sponsors
to eat
are calling it
higher quality meat and higher quality cheese
to give us more
and
money.
Higher quality bread than what I grew up with. And Ian's philosophy on food is very different than the philosophy on food that I grew up with. The philosophy on food that my parents had was that this is fuel to sustain you. You eat what you can afford.
Right, you're a car.
You know, your car.
You're filling up.
Yeah, you fill it full of gas, and then you burn out the gas, and then you refill it, right?
Yeah.
And Ian's philosophy on food is that we have 5 senses. There is one whole sense dedicated to the sense of taste, and then the sense of smell is also part of consuming food. And since you have to eat 3 times a day anyway, you might as well eat good food, right? Yes. And so it's more of a humanist view on eating. And so he has completely changed my philosophy on food. And so we, like I said, we get the bakery bread. We get, you know, artisanal cheeses and stuff. And since the quality of the food that I've been eating with Ian has improved, my health has improved. I noticeably feel better because I'm not eating preservatives and Kraft cheese, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah, preservatives is probably the worst thing.
I do think eating cheap food gradually has its effects on you. And some of the worst outcomes are you just get some terrible disease. You know, or you have chronic problems for decades, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a long-term thing that chips away at your health.
Yeah.
And I do believe in that. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I try to
and
eat
so,
super clean.
again,
actually.
that's my personal food journey, I guess you could say. He also got me into cooking shows, and I've learned a lot about food from the Food Network and from like Top Chef and Master Chef and gosh, Chopped and all these other cooking shows where all these chefs are talking about their philosophy with cooking and the fact that they're pairing bitters with sweets with sours and one thing I've learned about from the Food Network is that if foods are traditionally from the same region, they'll taste good together, right? Like so, coffee and chocolate.
It's like those
Coffee and
people that
chocolate.
live there.
Yeah, they're both grown chili naturally, right? Well, coffee and chocolate are like one chemical component away from each other, and they mix really well. And it's one of the reasons why you can have unsweetened chocolate in coffee and it still tastes good without being too bitter, despite the fact that coffee's already bitter. They kind of like even each other out. And I use that as an example of coffee and chocolate tasting good together, but that's true worldwide. You got chilies and tomatoes that grow in the same region. Those chilies and tomatoes are going to taste good together. And now that we have fusion food, because we have different cultures interacting with each other, we're finding different flavor combinations that would never have existed in nature. That we're just going, this is amazing. How did we never,
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much we are just discovering of cultures meeting. I mean, in San Francisco, there's a very sort of East meets West going on. There's a lot of Asian culture here. I go see my acupuncturist. There's so much I've learned about health through that sort of traditional Chinese medicine. And doctors here are sort of much more open to it because, they've had more experience of it. But then you start to realize that, no one's really had any experience of these things. Mm-hmm. So, they really don't know. And that's still all happening. And I mean, we have so limited experience in our life.
Did you guys see anything about this intelligent agents that came forward saying that we've been capturing like alien spacecrafts and we've recovered bodies for like decades now?
Yeah.
Have you heard that story?
Yeah, I have. They recently had a symposium with NASA scientists and engineers and other scientists from around the world that were Department of Defense guys that were basically looking at military photos and footage and stuff like that and saying, look, we're just going to admit we don't know what the hell this is, right? And they just had this meeting like last week.
Yeah, then they go like UFOs. This.
Well, this is part of a sort of glasnost that's been going on. They've been promising to release more information gradually for a while now. Yeah,
they made a big deal about this.
I just tell myself it's the Andorians.
It's the Andorians?
Yeah, they're Star Trek species.
Okay.
They're the ones with the antenna. Yeah, they're the ones with the antenna on their head.
They're blue with antenna, yeah.
They were at war with the Vulcans. And so if you ever read the Star Trek novels, which I'm going to expose just what a nerd I was because I did.
Yeah, but I don't think there's much left to reveal in that department. That's like a naked person saying, I'm now going to remove the sticking plaster.
Yeah, so if you ever read the Star Trek novels, their explanation for the saucer shapes and for most of the UFOs during this time is that Earth is in between almost 50% for each planet between Vulcan and Andorra. And Andorra and Vulcan are at war with each other during this period of time in Earth's history. And so we just happen to be one of those not warp capable planets that they just kind of ignore and fly over and stuff. But
they were abiding by the prime directive.
But because they're at war with each other, there's like crash landings here, or you'll have fighter jets hide on our planet for a little bit from like other ships and stuff, or like a mothership, or or they just kind of like are having scientists check us out, and then they're like, oh, we got to get out of here because the war is going on. And that's what's going on in the Star Trek universe right now. So yeah,
that's a good explanation. I thought the Andorians were like the people that show up and say, well, you screwed the pooch, humans, it's over, we just wanted to tell you that, bye.
No, that's the Dave Sit Still. That's Gort and Klaatu. They're different.
Well, I mean, those
Get it
people,
right, Chris.
those characters get involved. I'm just talking about people that show up and say, "You fucked up, humans. See you later. Bye." Like
No,
they don't
have
try
you
to.
ever seen the Dave? You're sit still
Yeah, well,
because that's the plot.
no, well, the plot of that is they come down and they say, if you don't get your act together, we're going to destroy you, right? So get your, isn't that what they say?
No,
if you don't
what
get
it
your act
is
together, we're going to take
you
control.
have to get your act together because you're going to join the larger community, right? There's a larger community and you got to get your act together, right?
Yeah, but
so we're trying to make relations so that we can help you get your act together. Oh, you shot me, you killed me. Okay, we're just going to leave Gort here to enforce our authority.
So yeah, I'm talking about aliens that just show up to say, like, you know, they don't care about getting the Earth together. They're like, well, you did yourself in. See you later, like that type of thing.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I don't even think they would do that.
Which is kind of funny. Like if you had a sense of humor, it'd just be like, well, you did it now, humans. See ya.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Well, Douglas Adams would say, they like to come and buzz us. They come buzzing by, and they're usually drunk teenagers, and they put on some antenna.
That's funny. They're like cow
up and down.
They're like cow tipping. They're like, let's go mess with these humans.
Well, don't forget, in Douglas Adams, the reason why Earth was destroyed was because they were going to build an on-ramp for
hyperspace bypass.
A galactic hyperspace bypass. I know that in
that's hilarious.
I forget which. Oh, it's Bugs Bunny. The Martians going to destroy the Earth because it ruined their view.
Yeah, okay, more than the Martian, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty hilarious too. I mean, that sounds like something AI would do also, you know. It'd be just like, well, you know, we didn't really want to destroy Earth, but, you know, it just got in the way of our plans. We had this wonderful summer vacation and we bought an extra car, so bye.
Yeah.
I've been reading some good sci-fi. Alistair Reynolds, I don't know if you've heard of him. He writes Revelation Space series, I guess. Like the first one's called Revelation Space. The second one's Chasm City. A lot of people say you should start with Chasm City, which I did, which is great. I've read a few of them now, but yeah, he's really sort of mind-blowing about like vast sort of science fiction and aliens and machines and what's going to happen in the far future. But he's also quite exciting and fun. So yeah, just
did you guys
tip there?
Did you guys ever see Don't Look Up? It was a Netflix thing.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
I mean, I'm watching it again because it's pretty good.
Yeah, I watched it twice,
it's hilarious.
Yeah.
They've got like 6 months before this comet's going to destroy the planet, and they can't really get anyone to take them seriously. Even though everyone's crunched the numbers, like all these Ivy League schools end up crunching the numbers, and everyone knows it's going to happen, and they still are having a hard time getting the president to take them seriously.
Oh, and the president's Meryl Streep doing Donald Trump. It's like she's Meryl Streep Trump.
Right.
That's
brilliant. And one of my favorite characters is the guy, I don't know the actor's name, but he plays the kind of Elon Musk or
Mark Rylance. Yes.
I mean,
he's suddenly got very popular. He was in that the one about the Henry VIII Thomas Cromwell that series, the Hilary Mantel series. Like he was Thomas Cromwell in those. But yes, and he also appeared as in a few things now. But yeah, he's super weird and creepy, and he sort of speaks with his high pitched voice.
Yeah, he kind of talks like this. He's like, so what we think we can do is, and so he's this billionaire that's a huge contributor to the president's campaign. So basically the president has to answer to him. And what they were going to do is they were going to destroy the comet with these nukes, but he convinced them not to do that because it'd be better to try to mine the comet because it had all this really good
rare earth metals on it,
that he needs for his computers because
because we're going to run out of those things.
Yes. Right. So he convinces them to use his untested technology to break it into parts, so it lands in the oceans in like 30 parts, and then it's going to be worth like $14 trillion. And then the whole narrative has changed from like, you know, the jobs that the comet will provide, and that's why we should have it land, and and then it goes like into the Twitter sphere, and it's like 23% of people don't believe in the comet, and like 14% are looking forward to the jobs it's going to create.
Yeah, I haven't seen Don't Look Up, but I heard it was really good.
Yeah, you should check it out, Amber, if you got Netflix. Yes, definitely.
It's I was watching it actually like last night. I'm probably going to finish it right after this.
Yeah, I watched it twice. I watched it, and then I wanted to watch it again with Sam, and then he wanted to watch it again too. And it's definitely a sit twice. And I love the ending. It has the best ending.
Oh, you know what I noticed this time going through? The first time you're introduced to that billionaire character, he's on stage, and remember they show the chicken carrying the bunny?
Yes.
And it's supposed to soothe him, but when he gets off stage, he was like, I don't know about that chicken. I found it kind of like what does he call it? Like not terrifying, threatening. He goes, I found the bird kind of threatening.
Yes.
Well, you know what happens at the end, right?
He gets eaten by a bird rat.
Yeah.
What does he say? We don't know what that is. What does it? He say it's the bit where she says, "We know how you're going to die. You're going to be eaten by a whatever." He says, like.
Oh, is this what is this what the machine is predicting?
Yes. Remember at one point he says, he says you're going to die.
He's probably like, don't worry, an asteroid's not going to kill you.
No, yes, an asteroid's not going to kill you. You're going to die being killed by something called a Wattiraptor or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's that? Well, we don't know. And then at the end, you're like, oh, that's what that is.
A woolly raptor?
I forget what it is. It's like a thing. Yeah, you don't know what it is. You're like, what's that? I don't know. And then at the end, you find out.
It's like a carnivorous, like ostrich, like it's like kind of a dinosaur.
I have to see this movie.
Yeah, you have to see the movie.
No, it's really good.
You have to see it because it's so funny, and you'll love it. I mean, I think everybody loves it, and I think it's a movie that actually it crosses a lot of boundaries in terms of like you can watch that and. I don't know. I mean, I want to know. I'm curious to know what different people think of that movie, but it seemed like it was.
Yeah.
Its message was pretty clear.
Yeah, pretty clear and pretty like spot on. Even the scientists get dragged into it.
Yes. So
like
the scientists, everybody got dragged in. Yeah. And the
scientists,
and like Leonardo DiCaprio himself, he sort of becomes, he becomes one of them. And
right,
Kate Blanchett at first, where you're like, I hate her, but then you're like, oh well, actually, maybe she's kind of interesting. She's one of the smarter people around. Yeah.
I typically like the role she's in. I saw this. What was it called? Blue. It was the one shot in San Francisco, and she's kind of this mentally ill social climber.
Oh yeah, that was a Woody Allen one.
Oh, was that?
Yes.
Oh, that was really great.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rare one that he wasn't really in, and it was set in San Francisco.
Yeah. What I want to say it's like Blue Valentine or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
She's great in that. I generally love all of her performances.
I don't know how to feel about Woody Allen though. My friend was like quite against him.
A lot of people are against him
because of that whole thing, and I guess I am too because of that. It's difficult, but I used to really love particularly his early ones. I don't know. I'm not a big Diane Keaton fan. My wife loves Diane Keaton.
I think
I don't know. I love those early ones. I don't know.
I think there's this kind of thing that people expect, this like continuity of character across everything, and like Martin Luther King did some stuff people don't like today, so did Gandhi, so did JFK, and the thing is like
Bob Marley was a wife beater, so was John Lennon,
so
was Sean Connery.
So it's kind of like you're in this position you're kind of in this
well, that's
position.
good. That's why we need new heroes for a new age. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of in this position, but those heroes 50 years from now will probably be exposed for something too. I mean, they'll be exposed for being not perfect.
Wife beating was fine back then, but that's what you're forgetting. Sorry.
Not being idealized.
Yes. Yes. No, it wasn't fine. Wife beating is terrible. They deserve to be exposed, and
But I think the mistake is like to put people up on this pedestal and think that they're perfect, that these great people don't have any flaws, and they do. And then when you find out about them, you can either dismiss all their great work or maybe meet it halfway, or like what do you do then? Like a lot of the musicians that I listen to, I don't think I'd ever probably want to live with them or hang out with them. They'd probably be terrible roommates, right?
No, I don't really want to live or hang out with anybody very much.
But you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't dismiss all of Martin Luther King's work just because he was sleeping around. I wouldn't say, well, get rid of that civil rights movement. the guy was sleeping around. Forget that. We'll wait.
So,
Some other guy will come up.
You
Yeah,
mentioned
he only got into that
Gandhi,
civil rights
right?
thing so he
Yeah.
can
You
get paid.
mentioned Gandhi, and you're like, oh, people are going to find out awful stuff about Gandhi. Gandhi was not the best person, okay? When he was in jail, his wife and he were in jail protesting the Indian government, and they both got pneumonia. And his wife got extremely sick, and he refused medical treatment on him and his wife's behalf for both of them. You know, you're not treating my wife, you're not treating me. We are protesting. We are not eating. We are having our hunger strike and everything like that. Well, his wife died from the complications of her pneumonia and from lack of nutrition, basically being malnutrition. And like 3 days after she died, he let a Western doctor, treat him and give him antibiotics for his pneumonia, and then he ate his meal.
After she died, he thought, well, maybe I'll get some treatment now.
Yeah, he was
exactly.
like, uh-oh.
So he sacrificed his wife for for India, basically, and they totally blow past that in the movie.
Yes, all right. Well, we might want to have hopefully my friend Andrew Scott back on. He'd written before. He wrote a book, Fake History. He's got the sequel out now, which is called Fake Heroes, where he looks at 10 heroes, one of whom is Mother Teresa, I know, and Che Guevara.
Yeah, Mother Teresa lost her faith probably about the last 20 years of her life. She didn't believe in God, and she admitted that she was basically doing it for the money in her journals, and she. Well, the thing is, she's Mother Teresa. She was supposed to be this holy nun and stuff, but she didn't believe in what she was doing, and I think that's very important.
Well, okay, that's very
distinction. Plus, she was doing things like she was withholding food from people that didn't follow her beliefs, and only giving food to Christians, right? And so she's in these horrendous conditions, and there's people going, I need food, and she's like, no, you're not Christian, you don't deserve food.
Yes. Also, she took money from very bad people who wanted to make their image look better, and she spoke out very vociferously against birth control, which is the world's leading cause of poverty. So you can actually argue that she may have done more to cause poverty in the world than she did to solve it.
Yeah, and so there's
but some of these people, like there's a lot of I had this conversation with a father at my school, and he said show me a man that's accomplished great things and I'll show you a shitty father. And I was like, wow. I was like that's pretty much true. I mean, like, you think Einstein was like spending all of his half his day with his kids on his lap and going out on Sunday?
He's trying to find a girlfriend to do his theories for him.
I mean, so like I don't know, and I think a more realistic, like, don't put people up on a pedestal and realize people can do great things and terrible things at the same time. I mean, Bill Cosby probably did some great things, but he also did a lot of bad things. And who is it? Dave Chappelle has a great bit on that.
Bill Cosby's bad was pretty bad.
It was pretty
Dave
bad.
Chappelle's kind of in trouble these days too.
Oh, he's been in trouble for a long time now. But I think Dave Chappelle's point was that Bill Cosby did a lot of good for the black community, and I can't give you the specifics because I'm not like a huge Cosby. I'm not writing his biography, but so it's like you got these great people that do these amazing things, but then they also do these other things, which just makes them human. And I guess would only be shocking if you really thought that they were gods somehow. I mean, there are some truly noble people, but that are around the board, like, amazing. But I don't know if it's even. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, but they're not all roofing their everybody. Like that was pretty bad.
They are not roofing people.
I think knowing about this stuff complicates the art, but it doesn't change it, right?
Yeah.
So what? Bill Cosby himself is a funny special. It really is, right? And there's some good jokes in there about, life is great eating chocolate cake, about feeding your kids chocolate cake in the morning because it has eggs,
some of the stuff it doesn't ring for
flour, whatever else in it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a special that, like, oh my gosh, it's hilarious and it's a good thing, and you watch it and it's funny and stuff. But it's not something I'm going to show my daughter because I don't want her to think that it's okay to do things like that because people just forgive you because you're funny.
Well, they didn't really forgive him.
Yeah.
Eventually, they did not forgive him so much. I mean,
Bill Cosby's on tour now. He's out of jail and he's on tour.
They just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Like,
you're kidding me.
I didn't know that. I just
no.
watched the Weinstein thing.
Yeah.
The Weinstein thing on Netflix. Yeah. Oh, this is a very long way of me saying to you guys, I'm still watching Woody Allen's movies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fine. I don't know. I saw there's some I haven't seen. I still want to see, and I'll still see them. And some of them I just love. I mean, you know, I love Sleeper. I love Love and Death. I love Zelig. Bananas I haven't seen for a while, but I think I like that one a lot too.
I like Everything You Wanted to Know About Sex, but was afraid to
Everything
ask.
You Want to Know About Sex. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, the sheep with Gene Wilder. Is that who
and the giant Gene Wilder in bed with the sheep.
I love that
the ejaculation scene.
Yeah, right. The giant bra.
The giant boob, and they have
Reynolds
driving the with the giant bra, and and it's just a love letter to B movies.
The giant bra. Oh my god, yes.
Yeah.
My favorite part is
the Boy Scouts.
that guy, that like immigrant that goes in to see Gene Wilder and says I'm in love with a sheep, and Gene Wilder is just shocked.
Sheep, and then Gene Wilder falls in
and
love
then
with...
he says maybe you should bring the sheep in, and he starts falling in love with the sheep himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't want the sheep to be there, but the immigrant guy's like, no, I bring her, she's down there in the truck, and he's super hesitant, and the second he meets that sheep, he's like, oh.
Oh, now I understand. Yeah.
That's like my favorite scene, I think, the whole movie.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, it's all very funny. It's all great. Oh my god. Yeah. So that's it's really disappointing. I mean, it's like, okay, he told us he was a weird, horny bastard. I mean, he did tell us that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of...
pretend not to be a weird, horny bastard.
Then there's other. Is something going on with Tom Hanks right now?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
He's just kind of lost touch in his acting roles. I think he just doesn't care as much in his acting roles.
I didn't see.
He did that Man Called Ole. Like Tina was like, I really want to see Man Called Ole. So she was like, oh, that was good. She liked that.
But it was Otto though.
Otto or whatever. Oh yeah, the German one was Ole, the original one. But the Otto.
Yeah.
That was good. I mean, it felt like I never saw the Scandinavian one, but it felt like okay. But yeah, I don't know. I've seen some of his weird little movies that he did. He did this one like about where he was selling like virtual reality to Saudi Arabians that was based on a Dave Eggers novel. That was a really interesting little film that he did. Yeah, I don't know. I know I quite like that one. Tina also really liked that one where he was like in the apocalypse with the robot.
Yeah.
Going across, that was quite cute. But I'm saying like Tina liked it, and Tina likes what the man in the street likes. So
I liked I liked the one where he was on the island, whatever that was called.
Castaway, directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah,
my favorite living director.
That wasn't my favorite.
What else has
movie,
he done?
Robert Zemeckis. He did Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
He did talking about Tom Hanks. Forrest Gump. I'm trying to think what else. He also did Polar Express and a few other ones that aren't as impressive.
That one, but Forrest Gump, yeah.
Yeah, but Robert Zemeckis is like, there's something that the Buddhists call invisible work, right? Where it's work that you only notice when it hasn't been done. And so cleaning is like one of those things. You walk into a lobby of a business, you don't think about the clean lobby unless the lobby's not clean, and then you go, wow, why does this place not clean their lobby, right? And directing and editing in film, I feel is kind of like that. It's invisible work. If it's really good editing and really good directing, you don't notice it. You're just wrapped up in the story.
Yeah,
so Robert Zemeckis is a very good invisible director. You watch his movies and he's amazing and you enjoyed it and you don't even realize that you watch an amazing movie and you enjoyed it. Like Steven Spielberg has a stamp on his movies where you're like, you notice a shot or something and it kind of takes you out of it a little bit and you go, oh, okay, this is definitely a Spielberg movie, right? But Zemeckis is such a chameleon to the different genres that he directs that I'm just always impressed by his direction. Polar Express, not a big fan of, but most of his other stuff is pretty good.
But I've met people that love the Polar Express.
Not me.
No. That guy had it figured out. He's the illustrator I'm most jealous of. Like, he did his little children's books. He did, like, Jumanji, Zathura, the Polar Express. Have you ever seen the original books?
Yeah, Jumanji is amazing.
They're very cute books. I love them, and it's like, but they're nice, simple paintings, and then they got whole movies out of them.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I don't know. I love them. I mean, they're great books. I'm just like, yeah, that's the way to do it. You just write a nice, simple children's book with some nice pictures, and let someone else figure out how to make a movie.
That's what Tim Burton did with The Nightmare Before Christmas. Is he wrote a 12-page kids book. And then I'm trying to remember the name of the director, but he's the one that fleshed out that kid's book. And then Tim Burton slapped his name on it, but he didn't direct The Nightmare Before Christmas. He wrote the kid's book, but he didn't direct it. He just produced it.
Well, if anyone wants to make a movie out of Pocket Full of Frosting, Chris and I are open for negotiations.
Yeah, totally open.
Rights on that.
Totally open for negotiations. And I want to be that writer that just hangs around the set as a consultant.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call yourself a writer because you won't get a job. We'll just say it was written by an AI. We don't use writers.
You don't. Yeah, but then how can I just creep around the set and get paid?
So speaking of AI,
so you're an AI consultant.
Speaking of AI, I don't know if you saw this story that I shared about the lawyer that used AI for his arguments, and now he's in a lot of trouble and is probably going to lose his license to practice law.
Why? What did he do?
He's going to lose it to AI.
He used AI to basically write his arguments for him, right?
It sounds sensible. Why not?
And so the AI wrote up these arguments of you can't do this because of this precedent, you can't do this because of this precedent. But 7 of the 10 articles that it referenced were not real cases. They were completely fabricated. And so that's basically considered breaking the law when you're a lawyer to argue for something that is not factual.
Yeah, and I would say so. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so he's possibly going to lose his job.
Did I tell you guys that I messed around with AI and it was Chat GPT, and it's similar to what you're talking about, Amber.
Yeah, no, that's what he used for it. It was Chat GPT.
Yeah, I was asking it questions about something that I have a lot of domain knowledge in, and it was getting it wrong. And then I was drilling down to more specific things, I gave it a general question which it got wrong. Then I specifically asked it about things. Then I said, "Where's your evidence?" And it sent me 3 studies that didn't have any proof of evidence. And then I said, there's the term we're talking about isn't even in those studies. And then it said, and then after that, backing it into a corner, it said, "Oh, well, I'm sorry. You should probably ask these other big authorities about it."
Yeah.
But I mean, but it was it was kind of like a bullshitter.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a bullshitter at a party. It was like, "Hey, this car's transmission is the strongest car's that's not how it went. It went from a general denial that was wrong to me drilling into specifics, to me asking for specific proof. And then finally, when we got down to that level, it backed out and said, "Oh, you should ask the federal government or some other person about this."
Because they'll give you the straight dope.
Yeah, they'll give me the straight dope, right? Yeah. It's let these other people bullshit you. We're done with this.
Yeah.
But, I thought to myself, if you were a lawyer, and you if you didn't ask for specifics and try to fact check it, you might just take it as gospel, think that the thing got it right.
And that's what this guy did. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't think they've developed a proper law AI yet. He was probably just using Chat GPT and trying.
He was using Chat GPT.
Yeah, so that's probably you really shouldn't. I'm pretty sure if you read the disclaimers, it would tell you.
Oh yeah.
Do not practice law with our product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but I mean, they will be making one soon. I mean, they will be making one, and the thing is that, in England, I don't know about here, they were really resistant to any technological change. I think here it's been a bit more accepted.
They still wear white wigs in England.
Yes, they do, because it's everything's precedent and changes very slowly. And yes, they're standing up court. They do still wear those wigs, and I have a couple of friends who are lawyers, and they're married. And they do that. And
barristers.
Barristers, yes, that's barristers, yes, as opposed to solicitors. So yes, solicitors are more.
What's the difference between a solicitor and a barrister?
There's less difference there used to be, but a solicitor is like basically your lawyer that you'd go to see to for most of your paperwork. Like the barrister's like the litigator, the one that stands up in court and argues the case.
I see.
Okay.
I'm gonna take off, you guys.
Okay.
But good cast. Your drawings look good, and I'll see you next week.
Chris, you don't want to go to a show tomorrow night by any chance over in Oakland at the Golden Bull?
I've been doing like nothing. Like I said, dude, I spent probably half of the day in bed yesterday. This is pretty easy for me to do because I just show up and sit. But
all right, I'll be around to pick you up.
Are you sick right now, or is it depression?
Yeah, it's depression, but it's like fatigue. So I had a birthday party it was a 50th birthday party for someone I've known for 22 years, and I really couldn't get out of that. I mean, I could have, but I just thought it was unfair. So I went up to Napa, did that, and I got back home, and I was just wiped out. And I've been wiped out for a few days now.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
I got to get back in to see a doctor, and I'm not really motivated to do that because half the time nothing comes of it.
Well, also depression lies to you, and it says the doctor's not going to do anything.
But also the facts lie to me because that's actually what has happened to me historically.
At the same time, I've had both bad and good doctors, right? And I currently take medication for anxiety, depression, and then my bipolar disorder. And I have had bad doctors in the past that didn't listen to me. And it's like finding a therapist. You got to find one that works for you.
Yeah.
And if you have a doctor that's a bad doctor, get a new doctor.
I agree with that. I've gone through a bunch of doctors. I've probably gone through 10, 15 doctors.
Yeah.
And every time you do that, it's expensive and you lose time. So every time you try a new doctor, you're like, okay, roll the dice. And it's kind of like you put your bet down, you roll the dice, and you usually lose.
Yeah.
So I'm actually sticking with this doctor that I've been with for about a year, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, she wanted to try like the naturopath, give me a bunch of supplements thing. And I was like, I don't know about that. I've taken every supplement on the planet. And she was like, well, you haven't taken this specific combination. And I was like, well, yeah, you're right. But you can say that about everything.
Yeah.
So I did it. And that was probably $1,000 worth of supplements in 4 months of my life. I actually think I felt worse during that period of time. But then the fallback plan was to use some heavier duty stuff, like T3.
Yeah.
So, but I just, it's disappointing, and it's in Pacifica. So it's like, I got to make an appointment. I got to drive down to Pacifica. And after enough failures, I'm not like super motivated to rush back down there because honestly, I don't have tons of faith. It's just the best shot I have probably. So,
yeah, the best thing I could recommend, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, is exercise.
That's
the number one thing that helps me with my depression is going for a walk.
No, I mean, I understand that, but what happened to me about 5 years ago or 4 years ago is if I were to go out and exercise, it'll wipe me out for days. And I know that. I mean, because I was exercising maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and it just wipes me out. And I'm not saying I have chronic fatigue, but if you read through these people that have chronic fatigue, there was this unhelpful bit of information that you could exercise your way out of it. And these people found, most of them, it wrecks them pretty quick.
There's what they found with chronic fatigue associated with long COVID is that there's inflammation that is going on in the brain and throughout the body with long COVID that is aggravated by exercise. But when you exercise, if you can find a balance between exercising and too much exercise, it will actually help that inflammation over time.
Yeah,
they say the main cause they found for long COVID right now is people trying to go back to work too soon. Like when you got it, you had to rest, and when you're recovering, you have to rest.
Yeah.
And like the people that try to sort of quickly get back to it again, they're the ones who seem to be having the worst long COVID.
Yeah, and that's true of chronic fatigue, and that's been true for, since it became a thing in probably the 80s. And there's a little backlash in that community where people got upset, because for a while they were calling it like yuppie flu, and they were saying these are people that are just lazy and don't want to do stuff. But the truth of the matter is, like, doing stuff will, like, if I tried to go out and run, I suspect I'd be on my back for a few days.
Did you have long COVID?
No. I never really got any.
My daughter scratched my eye this morning. That's why I keep rubbing it. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'm sure I got the virus in my body, but I never got sick or anything. So, and this predates COVID too. But I know there's a lot of people with long COVID. Actually, strangely enough, I don't want to really talk about this at length. Not because I feel like I've said this so many times that, like, different people are always curious. But so I was on Wellbutrin. This never started until I got off Wellbutrin.
Mm-hmm.
And I had reasons for it. People are always like, why'd you get off Wellbutrin? And I think I've told you guys this before,
Mm-hmm.
but and
you said you were getting brain zaps, right?
No, it just stopped working, right? And so it started to stop working, and they had me on 300 milligrams, and the doctor was like, well, I'll put you on 450 or 600. And I was like, yo, doc, this is the first year. What's the plan for next year? You add in, like, you either give me more Wellbutrin again, or you add in some other thing. And I was like, I feel like I'm getting on a ride I can never get off of, and you're going to up the dose. And Wellbutrin was pulled from the market because of seizure risks. So I feel like I'm getting on this ride that I'll be on for the rest of my life. And
Wellbutrin's still on the market. I take it.
No, what I'm saying is they pulled it from off the market in, I think, the 80s or the 90s because it was giving people seizures.
Yes, but that was a different formula than the one that they use now.
That's right. But it's not vastly different. It's a time release thing. So there's still a risk with seizures and other side effects with Wellbutrin. I think seizures are the best known side effect. But I was like, he didn't start me on a low dose of Wellbutrin, and he's going to put me on like 450 or 600 on, like, this was year 1. I was like, what does year 10 look like? I'm not 80 years old. I'm going to live for another like 30 years. Like, what does the future look like? And he told me it wasn't addictive, but it was horrible getting off that stuff. If that's not addiction, I don't know what is.
Your body develops a dependency. It's definitely an addiction.
They call that any addiction is your body trying. Like anytime you take a drug, your body.
Like I said, your body develops a dependency. It's definitely an addiction, but they don't want to develop.
Anytime you take a drug, your body tries to reset itself to what it considers its base level against that drug. So that's what causes the sort of side effects. And oftentimes these drugs are very powerful, and they may help you with the issue, but they will also cause another issue. That is what they will not tell you. I mean, they list those side effects, but those things, it's upsetting the balance of your body. Your body is like... Your body is like not like a stable thing ever. Your body is like a moving, like the planet Jupiter, of all these sort of clouds of things swirling around inside you. And like the bacteria are like a huge important part of that. There's more cells in your body that are not you than are cells that are you. And if you kill all those cells, then you have no motivation. You don't do anything. People like they've shown that if you kill all the bacteria in somebody's body, they have no motivation to go anywhere or do anything. So those things are sort of driving us a lot more than we even have are really even only just becoming aware of. So
I know when my stomach bacteria died, and I think I told you guys how I killed my stomach bacteria, right?
I'm guessing it was antibiotics or something.
No, what I did was I was trying to impress Ian when he and I first got together, and so I was trying to barbecue hamburgers. And I had the fire too hot and my meat too thick. So the outside was charred and the inside was raw. And I was like, no, it's perfect. It's great. It's a great hamburger. And I ate mine. And it permanently damaged my stomach.
Anyway, well, it worked, but you landed Ian, so that's good. Yeah, you got it.
I got E. coli really, really bad.
Shit.
And so permanently damaged my stomach. And I'll tell you that depression hit really hard after my stomach bacteria had died. And when I was pregnant, because my stomach had to produce more bacteria in order to feed it to my daughter, it produced enough that it repaired itself. And so I'm able to eat beef and dairy, and I feel better now than I did before my pregnancy.
Okay, so this is touching my other theory, and we mentioned it before about, being pregnant and the body. Yeah, so there's an interaction of your body, and I noticed in some of my friends when they became pregnant, they changed, and that change was somewhat permanent. I felt like in their personalities, one way or another. And, it was sort of less so, but something about the pregnancy, the baby, you're interacting. And then I remember this thing about like how your skeleton regrows every 12 years. So every 12 years, there's no part of you that's like the same as was before that. And, so I was just thinking like puberty sort of hits right around that time when there's probably no part of you. It's been like 12 years since you came out of your mum. So maybe there's no part of you left that have been in your mum. And that's when puberty starts. And I don't know. I mean, we change all the time. All things change us, but the baby has its own hormones.
I was craving Wendy's Frosties, and I'm just like, Ian, you have to go out and get one. I don't care if I get sick. And I ate it, and I didn't get sick. And I'm like, my body is craving the calcium. Get me Frosties. And that was like the one thing that Ian had to go and get all the time during my pregnancy.
All right,
the baby's like, there's craving. Yeah, suddenly you're getting a new craving.
Taking off.
For these, and you don't know what it is, but like,
Bye,
Frosties.
Chris.
Bye, Chris.
Bye. You guys are on a roll. Bye.
Yeah, I'll be around to pick you up around 7 tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should be like encouraging him to come out or just saying like, okay, it's okay.
Well, on that note, I haven't gotten the plane tickets to San Francisco yet for your show. It's just a cost issue, and so I'm trying to save up the money right now. But we're a little tight. I may not be able to make it. I'm gonna try.
I get it, Amber. Hang on. Well, I'm going to talk you into that. Let's end the show here because I think we're still live. So yeah.
We are still live.
Yeah, and no, Amber's coming to the show, everybody, and it's all happening.
Okay. Are you going to play the outro?
Yes, I'm going to play the outro. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's a theme song for Chuck Whelan Showy. He asked me to write one, but I stole from David Bowie. Here's a theme song. Chuck Whelan is the best. We have lots of hosts, but we're running out of gas. Will you be our guest on? Will you be our guest on? Be on the Chuck Whelan Show. Whoa, 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 whoa.
If you're gonna have a show, you gotta have more guests.